Hello.
GG, how are you?
Great. How about you? Happy day after Easter.
Thank you. Good.
All right, I have one earpiece has to go back in or I can't hear you. Okay, sorry. We're good. Hey, Allison.
She made it. She got
Yeah, I was
audio to connect.
sorry, Jesse. Can you say that again?
Just say you got audio to connect as I go over the mountain.
My Bluetooth just disconnected. Okay, we're good. Weird. It's on again, off again.
My
Yeah,
Wi-Fi's been weird on and off the last few days. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes. I think Jesse and I are both driving.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
yeah, there's a little bit of an echo, but it's not too bad, Jess.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's your Sam going? How is Easter? Check in. So word for the day.
Word for the day for Easter or for today?
Or Easter. Yes, Sam.
Egg straw special.
Eggs just good one, Jenny. Come up with a new word.
Yeah. Well, it's better than having an egg on your face, huh, Allison?
Which I get every now and then.
Me too. So Greg and I were clowning around at the circus after church. So that was a little bit unusual for an Easter.
Yeah. It's cool that you could go to the circus still.
Yes. It's the Shriners Circus. So his hall, gave a donation, got some tickets, and he's like, tomorrow's the last day. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll do that. So that's what we did. And we had gone last year, but it was at the fairgrounds. So they had a 3-ring circus. This time it was in a tent. It was quite warm. And it was a 1-ring circus. So, I mean, it was nice, but it wasn't. And he was really working on something he said he learned from me, is trying to be present in the moment. So I was proud of him. So we enjoyed the moment and took the good.
That's amazing to me.
What did you learn with this experience?
What did I learn? That
His
motorcycles.
experience.
Oh, from his experience? Sorry, it's cutting it. I'm getting half of what you're saying. Sorry. Can you hear him well, Allison?
Yeah, he said, what did you learn from Greg's experience?
Oh, that he's listening more than I think he is.
Oh, that's the important thing.
Okay. Busted. Thanks. He's like, I was thinking about what you were saying about enjoying the moment. It's like, we need to do more of that. He's always saying, we need to do more of that.
Well, what he means is that he does, but he wants you to be there with him, Janine.
I know. I get it.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that.
I guess he wants to be more like a mushroom. Be a fun guy. Okay, that's a dad joke.
I got it. I got it. No, pretty good one. Pretty good one.
Where my mind went to when you said fungi was be the connector.
Yes.
And my experience of Greg is that he actually does like to be that.
Yes. He also likes to fix things.
Yes, but that is also a very male occupation. I think
What's our
women
word? 'Cause
also.
we can't.
Sorry, Jess, I interrupted. Say.
What's our word that we can't? Can't fix it. Or yeah, we're real tied to that.
Broken?
Yeah, we don't see it that way. We don't see it as broken. We see it as our values in fixing it. So we don't keep it broken.
That's right.
Huge word. Provide, provider, protector, all sorts of that.
Say that again. Your word of provider and protector.
It's very tied up into that fixing.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that. It's certainly what I have experienced. With my brothers and with Bruce. I haven't had a son, so I can't speak to that. And that's also very much part of the duality that the cultural duality that we live in, right?
Mm.
Well, as I said that, I thought it goes right back to survival. Because if you want to survive, you need something to protect you from the elements initially. And then it got a lot more less essential or less foundational. So it became there were a lot more factors involved or included or imagined factors. That's really what I want to say. You kept on developing these things to conquer nature. Because somewhere along the line, nature was perceived as the enemy. Not necessarily the enemy, but to be conquered instead of something to be collaborated with.
Risky, unknown, uncertain, uncontrollable, which is the primary source. Primal source.
Yeah. And what I take from this is how important, just from what we've discussed in these last 10 minutes, is how useful and important it is to dig deeper, to go more to the foundational level of things. More towards the origin. Because I think you're more likely to find your resolution there. But that's also what's difficult to do. Or challenging.
What do you mean by the origin?
Where did it start? In my experience of sitting in creative tension, when it's really uncomfortable, I can recognize the discomfort now, and then I can remind myself, okay, you're just in a phase. This is not a reality in and of itself that's locked in.
It's not permanent. Yeah.
Yes, Jenny.
That's important. So sometimes we don't always realize that logically. We're feeling like this is a permanent, immovable fact.
Yeah. And part of that is because we forget what we are.
And what are we?
Because that immediate experience is so strong. And so we go back to patterns, right?
I was just thinking about that when you said we get experiences so strong. And then I'm like, well, back to your original question, where did it start? And are we repeating an experience just with the different scenery?
Yeah. Totally. That's what I think anyway. What I've come, what I've come to. And so I think what I came to this weekend for me was just the more I remember to break that illusion, the more practice my body gets in recognizing it as something to intercede, to short circuit, as it were. And so you go back to action, which can be masculine or feminine. And what's coming to me now is that action starts with thought. And if you can recognize the thought as an idea or as a pattern, there's a big difference between the two. And that can help. So yes, and would be recognition of the now, and could be what lies behind the now, or below, or underneath, what's underneath it, or what's around it. I'll say this now because it might help me. I wish that I would remember more often what my teacher told me when I left. I said to him, what's the one thing that I need to carry with me when he said, remember, everything is vibration. And I wish I would just remember that more for myself when I'm in the thick of things.
What does that
How do
mean
you,
to you?
oh, sorry.
I think we're going the same place. To expand it, explore it with us, that would help you as well as us.
Did you get all of that, Jenny?
I did. I was going to ask, what do you do or how do you raise or change your vibration? What has you found to be useful in that?
For me, it's dropping into myself. I mean, at this point, I can direct myself to change my physical baseline. So I know where to go in my body that will at least release the density of the old patterns. But it's not that automatic that I just do it. I still have to think about things. I have to direct.
So some people find certain music helps them shift their vibration. Breathing.
Yeah, because
Focusing on focusing on one point, one spot on a wall, just staying focused. Being aware of the present state, just awareness and observing. I think I taught that to my daughter. She's like, I was in observer mode, Mom. Yeah, so that's our word for that. Just being
That's
aware.
great. Oh, that's amazing, Julie.
Yeah, because there was some thick energy at work. So she's disconnecting from that particular work environment. But also, I asked her, do you feel responsible for other people's energy? And she goes, yeah, sometimes. I said, well, just be aware of that.
Mhm.
Because the quote was, I'm drained from being in that place. Okay. I imagine in your line of work prior that if you were to have a porous border there, that it would be easy to be drained after working with people and their stuff.
You mean in therapy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant, because there's a level of responsibility, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And that carries a level of weight when you feel that
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yeah.
And if we do our role properly as a coach, then we're just helping someone reach their own awareness. We're not taking on their situation.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of that specifically, I had to learn to curb empathy and replace it with compassion. And for me, that wasn't easy because I have very porous boundaries. It just seems to be part of what I was born with. I don't know.
It's interesting how we hear words differently,
Mm-hmm.
because I grew up thinking compassion and empathy were similar, but empathy and sympathy are different. And I saw sympathy as, oh my gosh, you poor soul, let me jump down in that pit with you. And empathy is, here's a rope, I'll pull you out. So how do you see compassion? Is it a combination or is it different?
Okay, I'll try and explain this because I don't know how else to do it. It had more to do with the physical sensations that I had. So I had to use empathy, or it was just immediately there. For me, it was just immediately there always. And then I had to consciously say to myself, that is their emotion. And you could say that initially what I felt was sympathy, but sympathy for me is got more to do then with the action. Your action with sympathy is different to your action with empathy. And with the difference between, and this is how I use the terms, with compassion and empathy is that I had to put a boundary around the empathy, so then I would take the knowledge that I got from that experience of what the person was experiencing, and then I had to say to myself, this is theirs. It's not yours. And then as you would, as a coach, as you were describing now, I would then say, from what I need to do now is to shine a light on the alternatives. The alternatives of how what they are experiencing could be understood
So
for them.
I got it. So I'm extrapolating. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm pulling from the idea of sympathy. In any of these cases, empathy, sympathy, compassion, we are perceiving where they're at emotionally. They all do that. Sympathy is you're feeling it, and an empath will feel other people's feelings, right? But I
Yeah.
hear compassion is I can see how you're feeling and acknowledge it, but almost not in a dispassionate way, but a compassionate way is allowing you to feel it and being present with you, but not absorbing it.
Yeah, in essence, yes.
Interesting.
And that would, I mean, that again, it depends on context, right? So, if I think about my relationship with my daughter and how difficult it was for me to extricate myself from there, because what was happening was a whole bunch of projections from my part.
From
Not
what?
recognize projection.
I heard projection from, and then it cut out.
From me.
Okay.
So I would feel what she was feeling, and then I would go directly to being protector. Right? And when I couldn't fix, then there was a whole, what's the word I want to use, a whole vortex of emotions that I then experienced, which just went downward.
So there was a different role there too, because as a mom, we have that mama bear that kicks in.
And any parent, right?
And a dad, but I was just thinking in this instance. So you were taking your role as mother, as protector, whereas if you're in a therapy session, do you also have that pattern, or did you, or was there a distinction?
I think right in the beginning I did, yes. And I had to work hard to, not do that.
So that's interesting, because I think, if I recall, and this is my perception, that in some of the training of therapists, it's possibly been advised to disassociate yourself with the emotion and not be empathic or compassionate, to keep your boundary solid, to stay objective would be the.
Yeah, I think that's more in the medical model necessarily than in the psychology model. However, having said that, when I started my training, the development of theory in how to work with trauma was pretty new. And I mean, I shared this with you before. I used to have, quite significant differences with my supervisors. about how to work with my trauma patients, because at particular points in time, they needed to be what I saw as necessary. So it's a difficult territory to navigate it. You know, I
I
could
could see-
understand.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
Sorry. It is
I mean,
difficult.
yeah, because it's, and I think that's where I learned so much. For me, I learned that context was so important always. That's how I came to be able to recognize when I did one thing and when I did another. And then also that thing about that you go and you take an action and you see what the consequences of that action are and whether that's beneficial or not. And if it's not beneficial, then you rejoin and you reflect and you take what does work from the situation and what didn't work. And you do that together with the client, because it's your learning which they could benefit from. But I was mighty relieved when I did a training here in Canada with couples research that had been couples therapy, which had been extremely well researched. I mean, I think it is the most researched model, and everything that I had been doing with trauma clients was affirmed. It was a huge relief to me, and that doesn't mean to say that I always got it right. Don't get me wrong, I messed up a lot, but I was lucky because there was somehow I had managed always to create enough of a connection. Excepting with some patients would leave within the first 2 sessions. And I had that policy with them that they with me for a few sessions, at least, 2 to 3, and that we both then decide whether we're a good fit or not. So I only had one guy that ever just walked out in a rage. But the rest they might have been kind of curt, but they felt validated in not staying, which was important, in my opinion.
One of the ways I work with it is if I'm allowing them to experience it or if I'm taking it away from them.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good guideline.
That is good.
For whatever word it is, whatever way it is, it's understanding how important that is, just the feeling in itself, to name it, to notice it, and if I'm taking it, fixing it, or allowing it to be, to just move through it. And in the empathy as well, I can say, I can hear that and not need to own it, but I can say, oh, so I can remember my experience like that. I remember my time. I remember that way for me. I remember something like it. And so.
Yeah, that's a big one. People feel enormously validated by that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it normalizes their experience. And it also is that by so-called normalizing it, you then allow them to not putting it in the negative, but then they don't feel as alone or isolated more, actually.
Mhm.
So that reminds me of something I was learning in a training, Jesse, that it was advised to do a practice of listening in different ways, and the descriptors were a negating listening, where you negate the person or what they're saying. And I think that often happens in long-term relationships. We think, I know I've seen it happen with my husband and myself, where he'll start finishing my sentence and I'm like, that's not where I was going. And he'll think he knows. So, or he'll go, well, no, that's not true. And I'm like, I didn't finish my sentence, so those types of assumptive negating listening skills. And then, that they obviously advise you to tell the person you're practicing these different ways of listening, but where you kind of discount what's being said is the negating one. And then affirming is where you affirm what's being said. That's great. It's like a cheerleader kind of listening. And then the third way is more like a rock with ears, where you're like a video camera, just taking it in. And Allison reminded me that you taught a way of doing that, where you say, listen to what isn't being said, to listen what's not being said, to not the obvious stuff. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting way of looking at listening and just kind of thinking about it from that perspective. Am I negating? Am I affirming? Or am I just taking it in and observing and allowing, if that word is acceptable for that, and just acknowledging what is in the present state? I thought that was an interesting way of looking. I'd never thought of it that way before.
Yeah, it's useful to have those distinctions,
Mm-hmm.
I find it useful anyway. It brings me more to the detail of the detail, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I think I always will.
Well, guys, I thank you for the call today. I'm going to go jump on some rides with my daughter and spend our last spring break day.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Where are you? At a carnival or fair or what?
Six Flags.
Oh, very cool. I can't believe you took the call. You should have told us. We would have ended it earlier.
I just got here, so it worked out perfect.
Oh, perfect.
That way,
Well,
that way I don't have to bring anything with me. So yeah, thanks, guys.
thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Allison.
Jesse, thank you.
Bye.